Hello everybody, my name's AJ and this is Mighty Glue Stick, and I'm going to show you a little walkthrough of how I'm making these modular dungeon tiles that I'm making at the moment. Now they're based on the Dwarven Forge system, so they use a 2-inch square format. This is one of the tricks I've found is that if you print off, you can print actual size on your printer, so in order to measure a 2-inch square exactly, you just basically do it by pixel, or you make a little square 2 inches and print it off, and it's super easy. You don't have to measure anything with a ruler. And what you end up with is, if you get Sculpey, here's the Sculpey that I use. I've shown this many times, but I'll show it again because it's a great product. So Sculpey is, you bake it in the oven to set it. So it's basically a heat set polymer clay. And the advantage there is that you can keep on using this stuff and working it until you get it just right. It doesn't dry in the air, although it will degrade over time and become brittle, but you can rework it again to sort it out. So I use Sculpey, and I use a box cutter knife pretty much, and I use a sculpting tool every now and then, usually just the pointy bit, but sometimes I smooth it out with the end bit there. But this is my go-to tool. And the other thing I use is a metal ruler, a thin one, which is measured in, it's got inches on one side and centimeters on the other, which is probably the rest of the world has those, and the Americans just have inches. I don't know. Let me know. And occasionally I use a toothpick. Those are my sculpting tools other than my hands. Right, so I'll show you what I'm doing. Try and get my camera to focus down on my work area here. Here we go. So this is my work area. It's just a cutting board, and here's some stuff that I've been working on. So this is what the pieces look like. So I start off with the Sculpey and I roll it out flat, and I make a 2-inch square. Very thin, as you can see. It's almost paper thin. Well, cardstock thin anyway. But it's strong enough that I can use this as a template that I stick other things on. The reason why I want to get this exact as possible is so that all the tiles fit together smoothly. So then I build it up and I add surface texture to it. So what I did in this particular case is I just rolled up balls of Sculpey and I stuck it on there in a sort of a pattern like that looks like it could be rough cobblestone or river stone or something like that, and when you paint it, it looks like that. So that's just various layers of grey with a dry brush of whites and greys and a blotch of brown in odd places, just like pick out a few places there, and when you put them all together they look, it's hard to tell that these are all actually the same. Especially if you spin them around, they look different from different angles, and when you put them all together on a board it looks fairly random, kind of like a camouflage pattern as it blends in. So because I've made a mold out of that, what I used was, I've thrown away the packaging, it's a product called Amazing Mold, Putty. So it's a 2-part putty mixed together, and it hardens up over about 10 minutes or so. Actually it's a bit less. You've got to be fairly speedy with these sort of products, and it's a good idea to test them out before you cast your molds and stuff, if there's any chance that you can break your original, which in this case it wasn't. But yeah, so one advantage there is that once I've got the mold, what I can do is I get this base bit here, put on some Sculpey on the top of it, put it inside the mold, press it in, and it pops out looking like that. So I can actually cast the Sculpey directly using a mold, and you can churn out tons of these, and you can make modifications to every single tile. So you can add extra features and things. As you can see, this has been a bit scuffed up because I'm using it as a measuring piece. Now what I'm doing is I'm making accessory pieces. So in this case I've made a little stairwell bit, and this is a 1-inch modular stairway, so it fits onto a quarter of the tile there, which means that it will fit up against a wall, and it will also fit up against a little platform piece, an elevation, which I've also sculpted by hand and used a cast piece of the same surface texture there so that it blends in nicely, as you can see. Now, because they're so modular, obviously you can build them up and build them up and build them up into quite complex structures to do whatever you need, basically like dungeon Lego. And also I'm adding additional little features such as this here, which is a door frame, and the objective here is that if I just remove this door, I'll be able to drill a hole through the middle here, and the door will actually hinge and open. I've left it a little bit higher than the door frame there so that when it's sitting on the actual framework, it'll open up without scuffing against the floor. And that's the basic wall structure there that you see. Oops, turn around the right way. So bricks, made individual bricks, and how I do that is I just actually, as you can see there, make individual bricks and stick them together, and I just do that on the 2-inch square that I've covered in a bit of foil so that I don't have to worry about it sticking. And to do that I literally make lots and lots of bricks, and I do that just by making a rectangle and cutting off sections, not all the same, some thicker than others to make different sized bricks. Just cut it like bread. Really easy to work with this stuff. Chop, 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 chop. And I just get it in my fingers and I smooth off those edges a little bit and any irregularities, and I can make squares, or I can squish it a little bit to make more rectangular bricks, or anything in between. I can also make big wide ones that I cut into angles and things, however I need. And so what I do there is I just basically build it up. So I'll stick it on the edge and then just add more bricks, more bricks, more bricks. And what I don't want to do is stack the bricks on top of each other in a straight line. What I want to do is vary it so that it looks like the bricks are, just as you would lay bricks on a wall, overlapping each other a little bit. See that? Overlapping? So that, you know, structurally they make sense. And because it's medieval times and I want a rough organic look to the dungeon, I use different thicknesses, and it looks way more organic that way. Even a little bit fall down, rough and tumble. Yeah, and yeah, you just build it up. It's a lot of fun, really. And if you get it all horribly wrong, there we go, bit of wall section there, a little bit of rubbly bit. If you get it horribly wrong, it's not set. You can carry on using it, you can just scrunch it up, start over. So you've got as much time in the world as you need to get it looking just how you want it, and to get it as precise as you want it. So yeah, and the casting stuff is really good for casting simple pieces like this is the cast I made off the Reaver Bones stairwell. Sorry, not stairwell, library bookshelf. So there's the original that I painted. Copyright Reaper Miniatures, one of the really good furniture pieces, and here's the reproduction, one of the reproductions that are painted up. So virtually identical, except for the back doesn't have that structure of the wood, but you could actually carve it into the stuff if you wanted to, but since it's going to be sitting up against the wall most of the time, don't really need to worry about it. And it's a perfect height, a little bit higher than the thing, so I can just reach and grab it, don't have to worry about it too much, and it sits nice and snugly on that floor, no problem, perfectly sized. So yeah, there's really no limit. Because I'm molding the pieces myself and casting them as needed, I can make as many as I want, just basically depending on the materials that I get. The materials for casting the stuff is fairly expensive, so you want to make sure that you do it right. This technique of molding it with a putty is okay, but it's a little bit hit and miss, and it's quite expensive stuff, so you really, I don't know, I don't know if I'd start with this stuff. I'd probably go with the typical box pour silicon resin, silicon rubber sort of stuff. So what you do with that is essentially the same thing. You mix two things together, you mix them well, make sure there's no bubbles in the mixture, you pour it over the object in a box that's nicely sealed, and then you let it cure and you tear it open and take the mold out. There's 1,000 videos on how to do this online. It's essentially what I'm doing. The tricky bit is just getting the molds right, and if they don't work, throw them out. Don't make a ton of copies off the mold, which is crap. Yeah, and if you've got any leftover materials, like cast a miniature of which one is it? It was like a librarian sort of cultist miniature. Where's the original? Oh, here's the original. It's all black at the moment because I haven't painted, I just base coated it. So this one here, and then I had leftover resin, so I was just pouring it into these and making copies. So there you go. The reason why I like this one is because it's got no spaces for the legs or anything. It's all just basically one piece, with a couple of tricky overhangs being the hood and the book there. So it was a painful thing to get out of the mold, and the mold was suffering a bit with being torn up a little bit at the back there, because you have to like stretch and pop it and pull it out. So that's the tricky part. This is not a particularly flexible mold, but will last for a long time. The other more successful ones is bits of furniture and stuff. There's a crate and a barrel and a smaller barrel, a couple of lots of like bags of loot, and some bottles and things that I cast. So it's essentially the same as a Her Starts mold technique, where you just basically pour it in the top and then pop it out. Yeah, easy. And it was a good way to use up that extra resin. Of course, with these pieces here, if I wanted to, because I've sculpted them myself from scratch, there's no copyright infringement there, and I have nothing but respect for Dwarven Forge, but I could sell these if I wanted to, the reproductions, no problem, because I've made them. Even if it is based on their same technique, it's not an exact duplicate. I've never even bought a Dwarven Forge piece because it's just so exorbitantly expensive to get it sent over to New Zealand. Although Dwarven Forge does have like a $12 for 3 random pieces deal, where you can check out their product, and without a doubt, the resin that they cast, their Dwarvenite, is far superior to the stuff that I use, which is just basically a plastic resin. And yeah, you can hit their stuff with a hammer. You do that with this and it'll probably break. But it's all I need really, and I'm just doing it for the fun of doing this, because I can build whatever I want, and I've always wanted to have a set of Dwarven Forge stuff, so I've got the skills to make my own. And it's really not hard. It's not a very toxic substance. You can mix it up and cast it on your desk here like I did. Yeah, so that's what I do. If you want to see, there's an earlier video where I was actually casting pieces here. I didn't actually pop any of them out, but it's essentially like that. You just basically pour it in there, and then you just pop it out of the flexible mold, and out it comes, and it looks like that. So yeah, there you go. I'll post more stuff when I've got a decent set of these set up. I'm just waiting for the silicon casting rubber to arrive. It should be here on about the 14th or 15th of January. So in about a week or so, because I was just waiting on the supplier to get some products into New Zealand. And then I will show you the casting process. But in the meantime, I'm just finishing these off, and I'm going to put them in the oven to set. And they'll take about 5 to 8 minutes at 275 degrees Fahrenheit or 130 degrees Celsius. Super easy. Basically, if you leave them in the oven too long, they'll discolor and go brown, or possibly smoke up your kitchen and catch on fire, but rarely so, unless you really screw it up. So just set a timer on your cell phone or whatever and go back home in 5 minutes and check on them. For things that are quite thick like this, like that's a solid chunk, you want to give them a good 10 minutes or so. For things that are very thin like that, 5 minutes or 6 minutes is perfectly sufficient to bake it. Yeah, it's just got to let the heat penetrate and get the whole thing up to temperature, and then the chemical process will change it into a solid. Yeah, and that's about it. Thanks for watching. If you have any more interest in this sort of stuff, I'll have more videos later on. If you've got any questions at all, post them in the comment section down below. As you know, I'm always happy to answer any questions, get into any discussions you guys have. Thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it.